If you're like me and you are an unapologetic fan of the movie Cowboys and Aliens, then I've got a book for you. Stay tuned, right? Hello and welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey. My name is Art and I just got off something of a bender. Now, not booze or anything, but a glorious book glut of a weekend. Over on Criminali's page, he hosts what's called GarbAugust, and many of us know what that is by now. I think they are doing the third or fourth year this year. I can't remember, but it's where they take a month and read just trashy, glorious trashy books, such as movie tie-ins, books they wrote quickly to get a quick dollar, not with a lot of literary merit, but that are quite often a lot of fun to read. So books that seem to glorify, violence and action and all that stuff. Some even engage in some of the more delicate sensibilities of cultures, but I won't go into too many details of that. You can use your imagination. But then every February, they've started hosting what he calls a wasted weekend, where you take a weekend. I think it's always over Valentine's Day weekend, or maybe that's just how it fell this year. And you read trashy literature for just a weekend. Pick a book that's people call trash and read it. Love it, glory in it, whatever. We're not shaming book readers here for sure. And that's what I decided to do this year. And I had what I thought was the perfect book for this weekend. And I had a wonderful time just reading this book. We had a snowstorm. We were stuck inside for most of the weekend. And it was an absolute blast. The book I want to talk about is called Dust by Chris Miller. And it's part of what's called the Splatter Western series, published by Death Head Press. And just by the cover of some of the books, let alone the title Splatter Western, gives you everything you need to know about this series. It is a series of novels set in the Old West that combine Western tropes and settings with horror. And the book I read today was no exception. In fact, you could argue it contains elements from Westerns, from horror, from cosmic horror, from sci-fi, and some Lovecraftian monsters thrown in. It was, I thought about calling this video the kitchen sink or something. It included everything, even the kitchen sink. And it was fun. The author understood the assignment of what he was writing. That this was not a book meant to win literary prizes. It was not a book that was meant to be a reflection on the deeper themes going on in our society. It was a book about a time-traveling cowboy who was stuck in the Old West fighting against godlike creatures. And this book opens literally with a bang. In fact, you get the point of view of somebody's head that has just been shot by this futuristic gun, but there's this gaping hole in his head, and it's graphically described. Now, those of you who are regular to my channel, you know that I love Victorian classics, and I love a cozy mystery, and I love I enjoy thoughtful science fiction, although I tend to be more of a Star Trek, Star Wars kind of science fiction guy. But there's this side of me, this Jekyll and Hyde reader, if you will, that on one hand, I present myself as a master of coziness, a gentleman of gentleness, a respected member of society, if you will. But there is this darker taste that I have that sometimes comes out. And that's what I've really enjoyed about GarbAugust, is that I can kind of let that side of my personality and reading taste out a little bit and let it enjoy some fresh air. And this book just was such fun to read. It was certainly not the best book I've read all year, but I will argue that this is probably the funnest book I've read all year. Let's dive in as to what this book's about. So this book, as I mentioned, was part of the Splatter Western series by Deadhead Press. And I think there's about 30 or 40 books in that series so far. And you don't have to read any of them in order. They're all standalone novels. I think there's a few that are sequels to previous ones, but for the most part, from what I can tell, you can just pick one that sounds interesting to you, which is what I've been doing. And I believe I heard about this series from Criminali's channel. I know it's either him or Michael K. Vaughan, one of those two, or somebody in the GarbAugust realm anyway. But this book, it was like it was made for events such as this. So the story begins with, as I mentioned, with a literal bang, and you get the point of view of a hole in the head, somebody who's been shot. And the story slowly unravels around the main character, John D is his name. And he's that typical mysterious cowboy who comes in the town, and he's looking for a town called Dust, and he's trying to hunt down a man named Dreary. You don't know anything about him at first. You begin to get the story told to you as the chapters proceed, and very quickly you realize that he is not a normal kind of cowboy, nor is he from this time period. And that's not so much of a spoiler. There's not really spoilers to this book, to be honest, but I mean, it is what it is, you could say. But I love that approach where you don't know anything more about this guy than the people around him as he's starting to try to track down this town and get the clues to find the person he's after, as well as the town Dust. Along the way, he rescues a former slave, a man named Denarius, who gets caught up with John and his adventures. And this part of the story was a little uncomfortable. It really kind of came across like a white savior trope. But John does rescue him from some pretty awful people. And I know some other reviewers had problems with this part of the book, in that it felt too, like I said, too white savior-ish. And I kind of go back and forth on that. I mean, this book does not shy away from showing that there was racism at this time in this period of history, which I don't like it when books try to hide that fact, that we want to be politically correct. We don't want to write about racism, so let's just take out all mentions of racism. And that just, doesn't feel true to the time period. But then, what actually does about this book, you got a time traveling cowboy who's fighting against godlike monsters. I mean, that didn't happen either, probably, in the Old West. So, I don't know what to make of it. I felt like some of the language was a little unnecessary in addressing this former slave and all that. But I think I understood what he was going for there, what the author was trying to convey. Now, and it's possible that he had that scene in because that's a typical scene that you would have found in a book that was written in the Old West or about the Old West. But it's also possible that I'm giving this book too much credit. And as I mentioned, maybe he wasn't really trying, it might just have been a trope he used. Anyway, so if you are sensitive to that, this is probably not a book for you. Also, as far as violence goes, this book is incredibly violent, graphically so. And, if I have to read the phrase, stringy pulp or something like that one more time, I was about to, lose my lunch. But that was the part of the fun as well, if you like that kind of thing. So as Denarius and John team up, they're able to track down and find the town of Dust and the mysterious man called Dreary. And while in town, they uncover this horrific horror, for lack of a better phrase, and they run into this monstrous creature that is very Lovecraftian, and how that has controlled the town and mind controlled different people and taken over bodies. And, they have to basically come in and rescue the town. And Daenerys' family gets caught up in it as well. And it was just a really fun action book that, the climax, the action of the of the fighting, of the rescuing of the town, or not, that takes up a good portion of the book, about half the book. And Chris Miller, the author, he really masterfully weaves that action together so that it's just this ongoing, at times unrelenting action from one thing to another, without being overwhelming. It never felt like it was too much. But then again, sometimes my tastes run a little darker. So, there's that, I guess. That's the Dr. Jekyll side of me coming out. Or no, that's the Mr. Hyde of me coming out, I guess. So overall, I won't spoil the ending or anything, but it was a lot of fun. A good standalone novel, perfect for reading for GarbAugust, as well as reading for this wasted weekend. What I liked about it, again, I think I shared some of what I liked about it. The characters were fascinating. There was a couple of the bad guys that I thought were really interesting villains that if this were a movie, they would be a lot of fun to play on the big screen. And you get the cool cowboy tropes, the gunfighting, the action, the punching, the escaping from jail, all that good stuff. And Miller really, as I said at the beginning, he understood the assignment. He knew what this book needed to be, and he did it and just gloried in it. There were some things that I felt didn't quite work for me. As I mentioned, there were some racist elements to it that, though, again, I understood the time period and all that, but then there were some that maybe could have been portrayed differently. But there was that. There was also a scene that threatened or implied assault against a woman, and that's where I tend to want to shy away from. I don't really care for that. If you are sensitive to violence and blood and gore, this is definitely not going to be the book for you, as I mentioned. You could fairly argue, did it need to be that violent? No, but that's the point of the series. It's like it's wanting to pay homage to the old westerns, to the old horror type camp stuff, and it really worked for me. This particular book did. I read two others. The titles escape me. I think one is called something like Horror on the Chisholm Trail. Anyway, I'll post the pictures up here, and I like those. They were pretty good. The first one better than the second one that I read. That was a little more graphic in areas of a sexual nature, which I don't really care for, because after all, I am a man of refined tastes. Sometimes. Okay. But overall, I gave this 4 stars out of 5. Some of those I talked about already, some of the reasons why parts of it didn't quite work for me. I felt a little too uncomfortable. Overall, this was a solid read. And if this is your kind of book, I would recommend checking this series out for this coming GarbAugust. I plan to read another 1 or 2 in August. It really helps to clean the palate, as it were, of my reading. I almost got into a little bit of a book slump for just a variety of reasons, but I found some great reads that really pulled me out of that. And then now I've been reading a lot of classics this past week. I've been reading. I finished The Vicar of Wakefield, and I've been reading Pictures from Italy by Charles Dickens, which is a book I haven't read before. And I'll talk about that in an upcoming video. And then there was another one I was reading. The Spy by James Fenimore Cooper. I was reading that for Michael K. Vaughan's Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, and that one I might actually DNF. I wasn't really enjoying it. I like to jump around from genres a lot. So I was feeling like I needed something just quick and flashy, and I needed this book. This was one of those cases of a right book at a right time. So yeah, that's my report from the Wasted Weekend. I've got a bit of a book hangover, as I mentioned. The weekend was full of snowstorms and shoveling and staying inside under my blanket with my TBR. with the occasional break of walking my psychotic Australian Shepherd who loves being in the snow. Just the other day, I had her out, and she stopped wanting to walk because she wanted to watch some squirrels running around her car. I can't remember now, but then she stopped. She sat down. She laid down in the snow and kind of just burrowed her belly into the snow, and then just laid there eating clumps of snow, enjoying a snow cone, I guess. Mind you, the snow was about 2 or 3 inches deep at that point. The wind was blowing. The wind chill was minus 21 degrees, and she's enjoying herself a snow cone. You know, Pumpkin, you're a weirdo. I hope you know that. She's over here asleep on the floor. She likes to take a nap while I do these videos. Anyway, boy, I got off topic. All right, so where are we going with that? Right, so that was my wasted weekend, and I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you had a fun Valentine's Day. My wife had to work all day Valentine's Day, so I stayed home and read splatter western. You know. And don't tell my wife, but that might have been one of the best Valentine's Days I've ever spent. But we'll just keep that between you and me, okay? Okay. All right. Thanks for watching. Let me know how your weekend was, if you participated in that, what you read. Well, stay tuned because coming up next, I'll be returning to my normally calm and cozy type videos where I'll be talking about books that are more acceptable to read in public. Okay. Whatever, read what you want, enjoy what you like. You'll get no pushback from me, to be honest. Just as long as you're reading, that's really what matters. So, all right. Until next time, I hope you all are staying warm. Take care and happy reading.